Learners, Micah here with Ghost Armour episode 24, Sleeping on Seattle. We're going to talk about the success, failures, but most importantly, the leadership, strategy, and tactics that the Seattle Seahawks organization are putting into play this year after the big trade in the offseason that's catapulted them to seeing the success that they're seeing, the growth. It's exciting. It's evolving. We're going to break it down, and I'm going to point out and explain what the NFL analysts and researchers of the NFL aren't talking about as the Seattle Seahawks continue to make their way through the 2022 season. One of the three major factors that we're going to talk about in relation to Seattle's success is the philosophical approach that Pete Carroll has constructed and implemented in and within the Seattle Seahawks organization. He actually started doing this long before, in the early 80s and 90s, been building his philosophical approach, applied it at USC, and then has brought it to Seattle. I say philosophical approach not as a religion or a follower of Christ or any Buddhism or even the Jedi way, but a philosophical approach to success. So what approach do you take to working out? How do you look at your diet? How do you approach your finances? Pete Carroll, through time, effort, and making mistakes, has brought a philosophical, successful style to the Seattle Seahawks organization. He mimics and shadows John Wooden. The coach, John Wooden, had a great amount of success, a lot of trial before it, but out of UCLA, he won 10 NCAA basketball championships. 7 of those were in a row. And Coach John Wooden, and I'll implement his information as well, also had a philosophical approach that he built over time, writing it out over notes and seeing what building blocks were needed for leadership to be implemented on a court for his team to see success. Pete Carroll has done the same thing. He calls it win forever. This is something that the media is not going to talk about, but he does have a book. I'll include that information as well. But the win forever approach is what is preached, what is talked about, what is encouraged, and it's what each and every member of the Seattle Seahawks organization has bought into, and it's a big, huge part in why Seattle is seeing the results they are seeing this year so far. Not only is the philosophical approach a huge reason why Seattle is seeing success this year, I've also included a YouTube clip of a conference they had on March 16th, days after they traded Russell Wilson. In it, you'll hear Pete Carroll stress the importance of having a philosophical approach, and it seemed like he almost got away from it, in my opinion, because he got distracted by talent over here. But getting back to the roots, going back to his philosophy, establishing the foundation, and going after what's right, Pete talks about getting back and sticking to the philosophical approach, and he's applying that right now. The thesis within the win forever approach is actually effort and maximizing effort and putting players, coaches, and personnel within the organization in the best possible position, even being challenged through big tasks, to push themselves to the limits to get everything out that they have to offer. This actually grows into the second factor why Seattle is seeing success, is that Pete Carroll has constructed and built a growth environment. I've talked about this before. Caroldweck, also include the information, wrote a phenomenal book on the growth mindset and fixed mindset. Pete Carroll is a huge student of a growth mindset where we're not going to get hung up on mistakes. We're not just going to hammer down on failures, but use our failures, use our moments where we fumble, we throw an interception, where we didn't put in coverage properly, or there's an injury. We will look at that and find the best possible way to turn it around, do better next time, and not make those mistakes again. That's a growth mindset and a growth approach. Again, these are tactics that we can implement in everyday life, guys. Work, home, school, business, at church, leading in whatever role that we're in. A growth mindset, a growth environment promotes health, promotes longevity, and it puts people in position to act themselves, to be themselves, so you can get the most out of your players and those within your organization. Lastly, Pete Carroll is a leader that eats last. Simon Sinek wrote a phenomenal book on leadership that does just that. Leaders that eat last put others before themselves. They don't glory and bask in what it is that they've accomplished. They build and construct environments of not only growth, but of safety and protection, so players and those within their organization can go do what they're meant to do on a daily basis with maximum output. They aren't willing to make calls of personal sacrifice. Pete Carroll made the biggest trade, one of the biggest trades in NFL history over the offseason, and people wanted his head. They traded Russell Wilson for multiple draft picks and starters, and as a result of that sacrifice, that call, he's benefiting from that. He is a leader that eats last. So by taking this philosophical approach, by building a growth environment and being a leader that eats last, the Seattle Seahawks are seeing exponential growth. They're doing things that no one thought they could do. They're writing their own history because they're investing in themselves. They're believing in a coach. They're believing in a leader. And we're not done seeing what they're able to do. It doesn't matter if you're a Seahawk fan or not. It doesn't matter if you're not a football fan or not. The leadership strategy and tactics that Pete Carroll has implemented are paying off, and you can take these same strategies and implement them in other areas of your life. Build a philosophical approach, build a growth environment, and be a leader that eats last. This, I think, can help everybody out. It's helping the Seattle Seahawks out. Appreciate you for listening. Mike is out. You guys take care. Bye-bye.